our Imam is under house arrest. You all know how much freedom did he have? Almost zero. Almost. Because then they would have done to him what they did to his father, Salamullahi alayhi, in Karbala. So of course the Shia didn't have the same access to Imam. So there was going to be a lack of knowledge. Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam came and filled that gap. To what extent? That the Shia previously were reliant upon the non-Shia for ilm. He flipped it. And the people became reliant upon the knowledge of the Shia. SubhanAllah. Can you see? Now this was the platform, this was the basic. This is what he needed to do. Teach the fiqh, teach the ahkam, teach the dhururiyat. So that now people could come to the Shia. Okay, hadith continues. وَهَكَذَا يَكُونُ الْأَمْرِ. And it will be the same at the time of the Amr of the 12th Imam al-Mahdi.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
We are reliant in many ways upon the knowledge of others. Science, technology, politics, economics. Do we run? No. Many of us become reliant on others. At the time of the 12th Imam, what will happen? He will teach to such an extent that the people will be reliant upon the Shia. Okay. So this is where fourth Imam situation was, fifth Imam situation was, according to this hadith. Okay. But he's taken them very far. The fifth Imam has taken them very far. Now it goes a step further. I'll mention to you one or two more traditions. Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam managed to take the Shia to a level. Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam took the Shia to the next level. Now what was that level? He took them to the level where he trained them and then told them, go out and give fatwa on my behalf. I'm using very specific language because that's what's mentioned in the hadith. Now just be very conscious. Just for a second, I want you to imagine it for real, not like me telling you hadith. I want you to imagine this is your situation. 12th Imam comes and he teaches you to become mujtahid. The knowledge of the Quran, the knowledge of his ahadith. And then he says to you, go and sit inside the masjid of Bradford, the main masjid, and issue fatwa on my behalf. What do you say? Is it an ordinary situation?
No.
The Imam has taught you, he's present, he's dhahir, but yet he says, you go and teach on my behalf. I trust you enough that you can do istinbat and ijtihad from the Quran and from my qawl and the qawl of my aba alayhimus salam, and then you can go and speak on my behalf. I trust you, go ahead. And if there's anything that you don't know or you're worried about or make a mistake, I'm here for you. But you go. Small affair or big affair? Huge, huge affair. Imagine now, he says, I want you to go and teach. He goes, I'm living in Bradford and I still want you. It's one thing him being 4,000 miles away in Kufa. He says, I'm living in Bradford and I want you to teach on my behalf in Bradford.
Subhanallah.
That's literally what happens. Imam tells his students, sit in Medina and give fatwa on my behalf. And he sends one to Kufa, one to Baghdad,
Subhanallah.
one here, one there, around the Ummah. Why? Every major city in the Ummah had different ulama of different schools of thought. When we talk about the four Imams of the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, they weren't in all the same city, number one. Some of them were in Medina, some of them were in Kufa, number one. Number two, they all brought different ideas. Number three, the Ummah is growing into Persia, into Rome, into India. You know what this means? People with different philosophies and ideas are now being brought into Islam that people have no answer for. If someone comes with Greek philosophy and mythology, and Indian spirituality, or Persian principles of commenting on or being Zoroastrian religion? With respect, can Imam Abu Hanifa answer those questions? So who has to answer them? Who has to preserve the ilm of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Sadiq alayhi salam. And then send you to Kufa, send you to Yemen, he sends you to Baghdad, he takes you from Qum, and he takes you, and he takes you, and he takes you. This is what Imam Sadiq alayhi salam did. I'm going to read to you a couple of more hadith and you'll see it for yourself. And this hadith is from Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
He says to the companion Aban bin Taghlib, great companion, huge alim. Wa alaykum salam wa rahmatullah. In Masjid of Medina. Wa aftin nas, and issue fatwa to the people. فإني أحب أن يرى في شيعتي مثلك. For I love that my Shia like you are seen. I love that you're at the forefront of distributing ilm. People know that they can come to you, debate, ask questions, and you're a powerhouse of knowledge in the city. Imam al-Sadiq, Imam al-Baqir alayhim as-salam can't be everywhere at once. So they need that representation. Another hadith, Ya Aban, Nadir Ahl al-Madina, give opinions to the people of Medina. فَإِنِّي أُحِبُّ أَن يَكُونَ مِثْلَكَ مِنْ رَوَاتِي وَرِجَالِي. I love your example to be seen from amongst my men and from amongst my narrators. One last hadith to be able to furnish ourselves with. Now, what I want you to do in a minute is just focus on the Arabic as well. Remember, in the previous hadith that I mentioned, Imam said that the Shia had لا يعرفون حلالهم وحرامهم. They didn't have knowledge of their halal and haram. So just pay attention to this part, because you'll see that the Imam's trajectory of growth takes them where he now issues a new hadith sort of answering this problem. So this is from one of the great companions, and he says, سمعت أبا عبد الله عليه السلام. I heard Imam Sadiq عليه السلام say the following: ما أجد أحدا إحياء ذكرنا وأحاديث أبي عليه السلام إلا زرارة وأبو بصير ومحمد بن مسلم وبريد بن معاوية العجلي. I have not found anyone. ما أجد أحدا. I have not found anyone. إحياء ذكرنا, bring to life our remembrance. وأحاديث أبي, and the ahadith of my father. إلا, four people: Zurara, wa Abu Basir, wa Muhammad ibn Muawiyah. I have not seen individuals. These are the four leading ulama of the time of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. Hadith continues. وَلَوْلَا هَؤُلَاء, and had it not been for them, مَا كَانَ أَحَدٌ يَسْتَنْبِطُ هَذَا, none would have been able to draw from the well of this deen. You understand? All of the ulama, all of everything that is done relies upon these four giants.
Subhanallah.
وَلَوْلَا هَؤُلَاء, had it not been for these, مَا كَانَ أَحَدٌ, there would not have been any يَسْتَنْبِطُ, to do istinbat, to do ijtihad, to draw from the well of knowledge. هَؤُلَاء حُفَّاظُ الدِّينِ, they are the huffaz of the deen of Allah. They are the preservers of the deen. وَأُمَنَاء أَبِي عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامِ حَلَالُ اللَّهِ وَحَرَامُهُ. Umana, from the word amin. What is amin?
Truthful.
Someone who is trustworthy, right? They are the ones who are trustworthy. Haram.
Yeah.
20 years later, he says, we instituted a plan of trading and development. These are not only knowers of halal, they are umana. They are completely trustworthy in preserving the deen of Allah.
Subhanallah. MashaAllah.
وهم السابقون إلينا في الدنيا والسابقون إلينا في الآخرة. They are the sabiqun. They are the foremost of the foremost with us in akhirah, and the foremost with us in
Subhanallah.
dunya and in
Akhirah.
Can
MashaAllah.
you imagine? Isn't this incredible? There's a trajectory of growth. It wasn't simply, I'm going to sit inside masjid and just give you a hadith. There was a structure to what he wanted to do. There was a vision, long-term planning. And once he could trust these great individuals, Zurara, Muhammad ibn Muslim, these great ulama, he could send them into different cities and they could be the protectors of the deen against anything that came in and challenged Islam or indeed the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. Now the reason why I mention this to you is I want to disabuse ourselves of this notion of this sort of Imam of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam is there's no strategy, or we don't see what the strategy is. We don't think in the context of the strategy of Imam. We only tend to think very shallow. We say Imam taught, Imam made sciences known, Imam was the teacher of the Sunni and teacher of this Imam. Tayyib. But is that really what you think? Is that the level of what we understand of the Imam? After studying his life year after year, hearing majlis after majlis, we've never gone further and understood that there was a plan?
Yeah,
But that's all we think? He just came in and responded to Imam Abu Hanifa and that was the end of it? No. With Imam al-Baqir and Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, there was a strategy over a period of 30 years of how they would develop the Shia. What would be the conclusion? Conclusion was produce mujtahideen. Why? Because the opposition was producing their own mujtahideen. The opposition were collecting ahadith. The opposition were doing what? They were spreading books of ahadith, ideas, bringing in spurious knowledge, counter knowledge from outside, putting Christians on the pulpit, putting Jews on the pulpit to create Israeliyat ahadith, bringing in scholars from India, from Greece. Who was going to protect the deen? Number one, we have to know that there was a strategy. Once we know that there is a strategy, what comes next? For us. If we really want to be muhibbeen of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, to do ihya of the dhikr, we have to understand that in our own cities, we have to start thinking about the strategy as well. Okay? There is the majlis, there is private classes, there are hawzat, there are academic spaces, conferences, all of this. This is where we have reached. But if I asked you, genuinely, what is the plan for the illumination of the knowledge in Britain? Knowledge of whom? Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. Could you tell me what it is? Take a step back. London, when I say London, I mean UK, is one of the academic leading. In Boston, you have more than 100 universities. You have MIT, you have Harvard, you have Princeton. Assalamu alaikum. Boston is one of the great cities of knowledge in the world. Yeah, but in the Western context, London is a fair. Political institutions in the world, where? Again, London, UK. Culture, arts, museums, where? Again, largest economy in the world. If Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam was here, tell me, would he not be training mujtahid? One go to Baghdad, one Medina, one Mecca, one Kufa. He sends them to every corner of the ummah. Why? Because they needed to be there. What do you think the Imam of our time would be expecting from the development of the knowledge of the Shia? For us to be reliant on the political, philosophical, economic ideas, value systems, research of others? What does the hadith say? Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam taught so much that the people became reliant on the Shia the same extent to where previously the Shia were reliant on the people. Can you see? That's where we are at the moment. But we don't have to be like that. We can produce thinkers, researchers, scholars, ulama of the highest caliber in every field of medicine, philosophy, ethics, politics, economics, strategy, technology, AI, all of this. But we don't think in these contexts yet. We're not there yet. But we have to get there very, very soon. We have to get there very soon. If you're going to stay in this country, if you're going to live in this country for the next 50, 100 years, then we cannot allow ourselves to be gobbled up by the powers that be. It requires us to understand the times in which we're living in and how our Husayniyas, how our institutions, how our madrasas are not spaces for babysitting any longer. You're not coming to drop off your kids for 2 hours, 3 hours. You're not there to just come and cry and do maktam and go home, have chai and go home, have samosa and go home, and maybe once a year, twice a year, we go and organize our julus. Those are the things we were doing 15, 20 years ago, brother. Those are the things we were doing when we came here. If we haven't evolved past that, subhanallah, what have we been doing for 20 years? Hadith of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullah alayhi. Amir al-Mu'mineen has an incredible hadith. He says the following: أعرف الناس بالزمان لم يتعجب من أحداثه. The person who knows best the times in which he lives in will never be defeated by the events of that time. If you understand what's happening in your own city, country, in the development, subhanallah, what did we see 2 weeks ago? In schools, Muslims were no longer being allowed to pray their salah. You know this about the case of the secularization or the ultra-secular school that said Muslims, even on their break time, cannot pray their salah. Did you know Muslims were sneaking off, hijab pulled off in front of cameras before being thrown into vans, police vans? Sisters, imagine it was your sister having her hijab being torn off. Why are you crying over the hijab of Sayyida Zainab alayha salam, but when the hijab of your own sisters is pulled off in front of your eyes today, there's no transition to the real world. This is the gap. Amir al-Mu'mineen said, a person who knows what's happening in their time will not be defeated by these events. Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam understood what was happening and had a plan to develop the community. I say this to you, that you are the leaders of the community, the champions of the community. Every one of our communities must have youth that are proceeding into Islamic sciences every generation, taking Hawzawi sciences seriously. Whether they go to Najaf, whether they go to Qom, whether they go to London, but they go and study properly and come back, and they can take over the mantle of being ulama in the community. We also need people of various different sciences in every field to go out, come back. And we need it to be strategic, where we use this knowledge and this science to make inroads into the city in which we live in. It needs to be coordinated, thought through. It needs to work in a way that allows the Shia to be at the center of the spaces of knowledge in this city. Your colleges, your universities. It needs to be in the other madaris and the other masajid of other people, where there is space for them to be able to spread deen, proper deen, in these various different fields, in these various different spaces. And we also need, eventually, in all the major cities of the world, proper scholars, mujtahideen, to lead in the context in which we find ourselves. If it's not being produced from ourselves, where will it be produced? You know that no one is leaving Najaf to come here. No one is leaving Qom to come here. So where are you going to produce it? From here. Wouldn't you be proud that you have a mujtahid from Bradford, from the Shia community, that goes and studies and comes back and changes the face of the discourse in your city or in your country, can lead the thinking of the community over the next 10, 20, 30, 50 years, what a pride that would be for you and I. This is the sunnah of whom? Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. To train and then to spread them into various different communities. I go back to the ayah that we started with to reiterate. وَمَا كَانَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ لِيَنْفِرُوا كَافَّةً. It is not befitting that the believers all go forth in the same direction. فَلَوْلَا نَفَرَ مِنْ كُلِّ فِرْقَةٍ مِّنْهُمْ طَائِفَةٌ. Why is there not a party from every group from amongst them that goes forth? لِيَتَفَقَّهُوا فِي الدِّينِ. To get the depths of religion. وَلِيُنْذِرَ قَوْمَهُمْ إِذَا رَجَعُوا إِلَيْهِمْ. That they may warn their community when they come back. لَعَلَّهُمْ يَحْذَرُونَ. So that that community may be cautious. I humbly suggest that we take time to really think about the sunnah of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam and what it means in our time. You can imagine with this sort of plan and having created this system, how much the tyrant Mansur al-Dawanihi Rahmatullahi alayhi would have wanted to assassinate and kill Imam alayhi salam. He sends to him poison. Can you imagine Imam Sadiq alayhi salam lying on his deathbed as the poison runs through his body? Can you imagine the skin turning different color? Can you imagine the Imam being so uncomfortable that he is shifting from one side to another? Can you imagine the Imam extending his legs, bringing them in, fighting the pain and the suffering? Can you imagine Imam Sadiq alayhi salam sweating from his head? Can you imagine Imam coughing violently? Can you imagine Imam Sadiq alayhi salam looking towards his son Imam al-Kadhim, knowing that in a few minutes time the imamate will be passed on to him? Can you imagine the entirety of his family surrounding him? Can you imagine Medina al-Munawwara about to lose this giant of a human being that has been teaching them for decades? Where are the people going to go to knowledge after Imam Sadiq alayhi salam? One narration says that on his deathbed, Imam called the entirety of his family and said, I want you to give 70 gold coins to my cousin by the name of Hassan ibn Ali ibn Hussein ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib.